Yo, what's up? What's up? What's good? What's good? Happy Black History Month, or like we like to rename it or add on to it, Black Future Month, Black, all of that good stuff. Thinking about us in the future. But what I want to talk about today is kind of what I feel are like, I don't know, low-level writing tips. Writing tips for dummies. I don't know, stuff that I consider rookie writing mistakes, rookie writing tips. These are some tips or things that I just want to comment on that I don't see addressed in writing books and in writing panels. I think this one here is something that probably people would ask as a question. Nobody would really prepare an answer for it, but I do believe it can be a pain in the behind. So anyway, today I want to talk about naming and over-naming things, especially in sci-fi. Give you an example. When I first started writing my first story, I thought everything, I damn near wanted to think of a new language, okay? And I thought everything in sci-fi and everything, not sci-fi, but everything in the future would have different names. I'm always hooked on, the progression of slang and how language and technology creates new things, and language slang comes up with new ways to say something. It's not this anymore, it's that. And so if you're thinking 500 years in the future, are we going to talk the same as we talk now? What will we have? Oh my God. And it just got overwhelming to me when I was approaching writing and thinking of stories. I remember I thought of something where a guy would call going to the bathroom or going to the bar the liquidation station, and it stuck. It was like, oh my God, it's so cool. I'm going to have him say that in a story. And while I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that in a story, at the time, I was thinking of naming the bars or the bathroom the liquidation station, and have people call those things the liquidation stations. So now, even hearing me say it over and over, liquidation station, oh my God, it's hard to say. Some things are hard to say, and some things are hard to read. Even though people don't read out loud. Some people do. I know I even do it when I'm trying to concentrate and I'm outside and there's a lot of noises. Sometimes I will, read the words to myself. I remember a couple of books that endings were so powerful that I would read the ending of the book just because it was so, I was like, wow, I can't remember the name of the book. I can't remember. It really had a big climactic end to it. A couple of books I felt that way, and some scenes I read out. I find myself reading out loud. It doesn't make sense. It's wrong. But even if you don't read out loud, your mind is saying the words to you. So when you run across something like the liquidation station, you may say LS later on and translate it, in your head when you're reading it, or you're going to read that whole word. And sometimes it can be cumbersome. With me, I'm not the book a day fast reader, but oh shoot, there's an accident up front, and then a car done broke down behind me. This is a rough day for things. Anyway, so for me, something like that may be a problem, okay? It may be a problem. I don't know. I know typing, I'm not really worried about typing. Sometimes the only words that are a problem for me typing is not words I don't know how to spell, words that have like really weird spellings, something that I got to remember how it is actually going to be spelled, right? So, oh shoot, there's traffic down this way. So that becomes an issue. The other thing is when you're writing, and let me stay on topic, I'm sorry. The other thing is when you're thinking of a term like that, sure, people pronouncing it is a concern. People typing it may be a concern. The other thing is it becomes cumbersome. And I think that's the overall thing, that, it's hard to drop a term like that if it's not important to the story. So if the name of the story is The Liquidation Station, then that's not a big deal. But if it is the liquidation station is your just something that they refer to, it does become a piece of your story that people have to remember. And one of the things that my first, second editor, Carla Dean, you can mark my word, that's her editing, told me was I had too many characters, too many names, and too many things for people to remember. Now, I don't know if fantasy editors feel that is a problem, because Tolkien and some of these other fantasy writers, they just come up with names for everything, names for days. They have so many names for things that they have to come up with a glossary to explain all the stuff. And when you're reading it, you almost have to have a side notebook just to remember not only characters' names, but certain things, And I guess that's part of what some people like about a story, is that you've built this world. That's part of world building, when you've created so many things, you've given so many things names. Oh my God. However, I don't know, I would say for maybe 90% of the readers, maybe 95% of the readers, sometimes you can put too many new things in a story that's not related to the story. If you're coming up with a water weapon, right, and it's called the Aquanetted, right? Okay, that's fine. It's a weapon, and you're going to go back and use it again, in the story, or you've come up with a term that you're going to use throughout the story. That's fine, and it makes sense, However, if it's just a random name drop, it can become cumbersome, because people are like, "Yo, what is that?" I can't remember what that was, or I read it in the first 3 chapters. Now we chapter 17, and they drop it again. And sometimes, writers, they don't reintroduce or re-explain some of the things that they create. And so you have to remember it. And I'm like, oh my God. The last thing I want to do in a book when I'm reading is to have to stop and Google, or to have to stop and flip back. Sometimes if it's a space name or a fantasy name, you just will never remember the name, where it came from. So, I don't know. It just becomes something that becomes a factor. How about that? And it may not be a necessary factor. So if you're going to do it, make sure you with your names and your slang and your terminology, that you watch it, you monitor, you pay attention to it. If you're going to call bullets something else, then remember that that's one more thing that people got to remember, and it may not be necessary. Just say the word for bullets and translate it if they got a different word for bullets. You know what I'm saying? And then you don't even have to call it that all the time, because you don't, it was the person just speaking the language, but from the rest of the story on, are they going to speak their language, or are you going to translate it? Because is the book in English, or is it in this language that you made up? So at some point, you say the word, but you don't, continue to speak the language that you've created, because people don't know how to read that language. You know what I'm saying? So, say hola, that's fine. People know Spanish, they can get with hola, but, too deep into, nosotros, okay, that's us, but people ain't trying to learn Spanish. They trying to read it in English, so translate nosotros. You understand what I'm saying? So you do that, the same thing with fantasy, and the same thing with futuristic space stories or cyberpunk, whatever it is. Don't get carried away with the names that you create. That's my personal feeling. I don't want to get carried away. I watch it. So until I'm a best-selling author, you take all of my tips with a grain of salt. How about that? Because I've only written 7 or 8 books. You know what I'm saying? What the heck do I know about? I haven't sold 10,000 books or anything like that yet. So maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But it's just something I think is a factor. Editors have cautioned me with so much new terminology. And, I just say make it worth it. You don't not make things up. Of course, you come up with new things, but how many, you know what I'm saying, is something that you have to be concerned with. So that's it. I did want to get this off my chest because it was important. Last thing, I just read a story I posted on Facebook about the director from Star Wars backing out, and it just used his last name. Ren walks out of Star Wars. I'm reading the whole article, and they never said who Ren was. I had to leave the article and Google it because I don't know the names of everybody involved in Star Wars. It could have been the costume designer, could have been the writer, it could have been the editor, it could have been the CGI person, and it could have been the director. But who knows? It could have been an actor from one of the characters. I don't know all these people. So, wow, how to get out of focus. So, that's that. So just be careful with how much stuff you name and how many things you're asking your readers to remember, okay? Because they're going to carry it in their heads. My son even told me yesterday he didn't want to read a certain book because he does want to have to learn a new world. And when he has time, he will read the book, and he reads books all the time. And I was like, damn, I know it was a factor for me. I just thought because I ain't that swift a reader that it was new. But even with, good readers like my son, having them load up a new world becomes a factor in their reading. So that's why tie-in books are so cool. Florida LitCon, baby. Tie-in books, tie-in movies, tie-in comic books, you name it. All of that stuff. Same brand. You don't have to load up nothing else. All right. You know the world already. All right. You know the rules. All right. Talk to you later. Peace.